This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are here in the mobile studio. Here at CES, we happen to run into an old friend, probably 20 years, if we go back. Craig Ridley, welcome to the show.
Wow. Hey, Phil, thanks so much.
So I don't think I've ever seen you at CES before.
No, first time here.
So you're a newbie.
I am
You had to come to Las Vegas to hang out with 180,000 of your nearest and dearest friends.
Is that all?
That's all.
And my Uber driver told me it's about 300,000. And boy, I tell you, I just got in yesterday, and it's quite the spectacle.
Oh, in fact, the other day I was interviewing, Tim Bajar and Bob O'Donnell, some contacts I have in Silicon Valley. They were here in the studio. We were recording, and we were commenting on the fact that they're building an extension just on the other side of the road here that will double the size of the convention center.
Oh my gosh!
And they're claiming that it'll be done and full for CES next year.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
So why are you here? Why was this the year you decided to come to Las Vegas?
Yeah, so I was encouraged to come, and one of our advisors, I've got my latest startup, Route Analytics, and one of my advisors, Jill Stelfox,
who we both know for 20-some years.
Exactly, absolutely.
All from our Washington, D.C. days.
Yeah. And so she reached out and said, hey, come to CES. They've got this huge, sports innovation, they've got the sports innovation show there and innovation lounge, and come join me there. She's giving a talk, and I'm excited to hear that. And it's about she's going to be speaking on women in sports tech in particular, but again, sports innovation is certainly one of the theme over there at the Sports Pavilion, and I'm excited to.
And that's over at the Venetian.
That is at the Aria.
Oh, it's at the Aria. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So. Had an opportunity, to meet with. So, being in the sports tech space, and specifically having a data science and predictive analytics play that we have, a lot of opportunity to talk with some like-minded folks and exchange ideas, and so I'm excited to see what CES is all about.
So what's this company that you and Jill are entangled on?
Yeah. So it's Route Analytics, and what we do, it actually, Phil, is the convergence of at least three of my many passions. It's sports, it's technology, and innovation through, again, data science. So it's pretty cool stuff. So what we do is we actually, as the name suggests, Route, we help high school athletes find their best path to play collegiate sports.
Oh,
and we
talked about this when we were when I was in DC.
Yeah,
and I taught the disruptive ideation workshop.
Absolutely, okay. Which was awesome. And so, in this case, we're starting with the sport of football for three reasons. One, it's the most popular American sport. It is the most complex in terms of navigating the many variables and factors that go into how you can be recruited to play. And then third, it's the most lucrative. That's where the most money is spent in that sport. So, but there are a lot of challenges for all of the stakeholders in that process: the athletes, the parents, the high school coaches, and the college recruiters. And so we're looking to both bring transparency and democratize that process through some new innovation.
But for those of us, I had a son who was a nationally ranked fencer.
Yeah.
So I had to learn all the NCAA rules about when can you talk to the coach, when can't you talk to the coach. Coaches, can't recruit under certain conditions, and
exactly.
I mean, we homeschooled, so I didn't have a
that's another layer of complexity
high
there.
school coach that could. So what's for those people who aren't familiar with the challenges of if you have a kid who's a top athlete, what is that process today of getting a kid who's a top athlete at high school to get on the radar for collegiate to be able to get a scholarship offer in order for them to be able to play collegiate sports?
Absolutely. It is probably more competitive and complex than ever. And much of the lift falls on the shoulders of the athlete and the parent. I've talked to high school coaches across the country, thousands of them, and they're on both ends of the spectrum. I've talked to high school coaches that believe that this is a responsibility that they own to help young people, young student athletes, have that opportunity to progress in their both academic and athletic careers. And then I've talked to coaches that they just want to focus on the X's and O's. And so across that spectrum, we're able to make their jobs easier while bringing a lot of clarity and transparency to the student athlete and the parents. And so that process today begins earlier than ever, right? Some for the better, some maybe not so. But you have a circumstance where the student athlete and their families have to identify what are the best opportunities to play, and to date there haven't been a lot of tools to do so. They're just kind of feeling their way through and often blind to the process. So you've got, like you said, you've got college coaches that have restrictions in terms of when they can actually contact a student athlete. Student athletes themselves, you can contact a college coach or recruiter or school anytime and as often as you want. But they can only respond under certain conditions, and then that varies by the governing body. So you have the NCAA, right, which most people are familiar with, but then you have NAIA, you have the National JUCO Athletic Association, and then when it comes to the sport of football, California has its own division.
Why am I not surprised?
Exactly. So there are a lot of the rules vary. Even within the NCAA, and let's stick with football, there are 4 college divisions within the NCAA. So you have what used to be called the old Division 1A, which is FBS, the old Division 1AA, which is now called the FCS. Then you have Division 2 and Division 3. And the NCAA has different guidelines on recruiting for all 4 of them.
And it's like the schools get only a certain number of scholarships they can issue, and then and then now the schools get ranked based on graduation rates.
Oh yeah,
for their athletes. So it's not just about sports ability,
That's right.
but being able to recruit a top athlete who also has a high likelihood of completing their 4 years and not only doing great in sports and potentially going pro, but the fact that they actually graduated and got their degree and completed their academic requirements.
Yeah, what you're referring to is the APR, the Academic Progress Report. And so that APR is a serious business, and coaches not only do they have to be mindful of it in terms of how they're graded and compensated, but that also plays into when it comes to these bowl schools. That's how you can become bowl eligible based on your APR. That factors in. So yeah, there's a lot to navigate, again, and a lot of complexities for the universities.
Who thought it was this complex?
Right.
It's like we're talking about kids getting out there and playing football. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And you got all these logistic challenges, behind the scenes.
There are. Yeah.
So what was there something, that triggered it? Was there a founder who had a kid that struggled? What was that? That was that aha, like, oh man, there has got to be a better way.
Exactly. I'm raising my hand, right? So I was that founder, and actually one of my co-founders, he also had a son that was in the process. Initially with my daughter, who played soccer. I've got 3 children, a girl and 2 boys, and she was a 4-year starter at a prominent high school in Northern Virginia, and she decided early in her junior year that she didn't want to play at the next level, although she was capable of doing so, and she was team captain and so on. But in her sophomore and senior years. But my son, who did play football, undersized wide receiver, he was told by his high school coach, I think you're a bubble D2, D3 kid. And so going through that process, he of course wanted to play Division I. Going through that process, we found out it's not that simple. And how do you navigate all of those schools? So there were a lot of lessons learned there. Long story short, we took a systematic, data-driven approach that I can share more with you on. And that bubble D2, D3 kid, we ended up getting him an opportunity to play at Division I, Power 5, West Virginia University.
When we come back, we'll continue that discussion, the inspiration for this new startup. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back to the show. So, Craig, at the break, we were just getting into the fact that the inspiration for this new startup of yours was actually yourself from the standpoint of your daughter and then your son. And you were talking right at the end about, albeit the coaches were thinking kind of a bubble D2, D3, but you actually said that he got positioned to do Division I?
He did, and that was his dream. And, you know, as I share with student athletes today, a dream without a plan is simply a wish, right? And that's a common adage. So we put a plan in place to help him achieve that goal. You know, when the coach told us he's a bubble D2, D3 kid, well, we looked, I'm like, that's 417 schools. And then if you layer in the Division I schools, now you're talking about 672 football programs within the NCAA. How do you even begin to you know, analyze and position yourself for an opportunity? And a lot of parents, what they run into today is again, it's a lot of, you know, offer chasing through blind hope, right? They put up some video, they post it, YouTube, Twitter, wherever, maybe fill out some athlete profile on a static web page, and they pray and hope that they'll one day get discovered. That's not how the process works. And offers aren't, you know, issued by accident. So what we did is we took a systematic, data-driven approach. After a lot of lessons learned, by the way, we went to our first camp. We show up on campus at 350 kids at this one football camp, University of Maryland, College Park. And I asked the coach, I said, Coach, how do you evaluate all this talent? And he looks at me with a straight face and he goes, Craig, we can't. There's just too many kids. So I'm like, okay. Then we looked over at the wide receiver coach and I realized we don't even know what he's looking for. So we left that camp with two things that day. One was a lesson on how not to go about the recruiting process. And the second thing was a T-shirt, because that's about all you're going to leave with when you have that many hits. You pay your $50, you run around a little bit, do a couple of reps, and then you got a nice T-shirt, right? So we came back and we got smarter, Phil. And what we did is I looked for tools, and there are these recruiting companies, again, they all focus on exposure, but nothing that would really help. Okay, where should I spend my time? You can only do about 5 camps a summer because they basically run through the football season. You know, football camps go through, and most sports camps in the summer, over the summer, there's about 5 weeks that you can attend camps. And really you can do one a week. You know, they happen on the weekend, some are during the week. So how do we make the best use of our time? And a lot of them overlap. So like, what are the best schools for us to go? You know, and they're held on the university campuses. So I started to build a spreadsheet, and this is just coming, you know, having played the game, top of mind, and like, what football programs typically recruit smaller, quicker, faster slot receivers? And I knew a little bit, but what about those parents who have no clue? Right? You mentioned fencing, and you really didn't know much about fencing before your son.
I knew nothing about fencing until my son got into the sport.
So for those, you know, who don't know, where do you start? So what I did is I started building spreadsheets. I went to the athletic programs, you know, of those schools, and I'm pulling down rosters and coaches and all those things. And I jump over to the academic website, and I'm pulling down admissions requirements, GPA, SAT, all those things. And I build a spreadsheet. I get exhausted after doing about 20 of those.
Yeah, wow.
But I take that 20 and I narrow it down to the top 5. And those became the schools that we started to pursue. That's where we went to camp, sent film, started to cultivate relationships with coaches, and work with our high school coach in conjunction to help create opportunities for Chase. And that's the data-driven, systematic approach that we took to get him a Division I opportunity to play.
Where did he play at?
West Virginia University, the Mountaineers.
Oh, man. That's a top school.
It was a top FBS Big 12 program, so we achieved it. But again, it doesn't happen by accident, and for those families,
a lot of hard work.
Yeah, and so what happens after I navigated that process, I had parents ask me, Craig, how'd you do it? Can you help? And the answer is, of course. And I could help one family at a time, but with about 20 schools. But the question was, and with my background as an entrepreneur, coming out of the intelligence community, supporting the intelligence community, I work with a lot of data scientists, data folks. I'm like, what if there was a way that we could predict the best outcomes and help navigate this process much more efficiently, and saving yourself time, money, and frustration.
Well, you've been focusing on the parent side of getting their kid visibility. Mm-hmm. What's been the response from the coaches and the schools on the other side of this?
They love it because we create comparable efficiencies for them. The high school coach I mentioned earlier, we make his job easier because the hardest job he has is convincing mom and dad that your kid just might not be at the talent level that Clemson or LSU or Alabama needs.
Right.
Right? That, oh, by the way, there's some great, Division II schools that your son could play at, and you can get the same money and get a great education, right? And then the colleges, the same thing. I'll tell you a quick story. Malik Hall, head coach at Bates College in Maine, one of the best academic institutions in this country. He's trying to recruit a kid out of, I won't say where, out of Northeast, right? He's trying to recruit a kid to come up to Bates. The young man's, he had a full ride offer for this young man. The young man's mom would not allow him to get on the plane to go take the recruiting trip. You know why? Because she didn't know where Bates College was.
Oh my gosh.
So they passed on a full ride opportunity to one of the best universities and academic institutions in the country because she just didn't know. Well, so part of what we do for them is we provide the research as well as the analytics and predictive outcomes. And so Coach Hall is like, if we show up as a great fit for you and match on route, please, know that there's an opportunity for you to get a full ride offer here.
Wow. Well, I actually had a similar. I had got to be careful. I won't say where or who the person is, right? But this was not from a sports, but even just from an academics.
Yeah.
Young girl, straight A student, gets offered a full ride plus $5,000 stipend. $5,000 full room, board, tuition, everything, plus a $5,000 a semester stipend, right? To Purdue. Turns it down.
Why?
And went to a school, right? Because that's where her friends were going, right? And she got tuition and books, but she still had to cover her housing, no stipend.
Wow.
So she had to take out a student loan to do. I'm like, my head's about ready to explode.
Absolutely.
But a lot of it is they don't have the data.
They don't have the data.
They don't understand what that opportunity really means. Right?
Exactly.
And either get focused on either just sports or friends or it's where my friends go or whatever it might be. So when we get back, we're going to continue this conversation with Craig Ridley. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Well, welcome back to the show. So, Craig, we were talking at the end about all the work you did on doing these spreadsheets and, what you're able to help with the the parents finding and getting more information about where the best opportunities are for their kids and the benefits to the schools and the coaches. So how did you go from doing this on a spreadsheet to launching your business now?
Absolutely. The first thing was I need to find a great data scientist.
And they're hard to find these days.
They are. They are in high demand, rare commodity. And Phil, I feel so fortunate. I've got 3 of them. I've got 3 of the top.
And I'm going to take just a wild guess that these are guys that are coming out of the work you do in the intelligence community.
They are.
I guessed that one right.
You did. And so, and not only that, we've got diverse experience in terms of perspective. And one of the things I've learned in working with these guys is that data science is as much of an art as it is a science, right? And it's, again, how do you solve that problem? How do you attack that problem?
It's the non-obvious connections that you just don't think about.
Exactly. So leveraging, AI, ML, and, bringing these guys together. So, and our chief data scientist, Tom Booth, this guy is phenomenal, and he happens to be a sports guy as well. And we met for lunch and had a couple meetings and there were some connections there. One, in fact, that was, just serendipitous, and that was he actually played football at West Virginia University.
Oh, really?
So he's a football guy and a data scientist. So we felt like at that point we had to do it, right? We had something. So we built a prototype. We took it to the premier Football Coaches Association, the AFCA, American Football Coaches Association annual convention. We built that prototype at the end of 2017, took it to the show January 2018. In fact, I'm headed there after I leave Vegas. I'm headed to Nashville. They moved that show around. And we took that prototype and we demonstrated that to the premier college and high school coaches in the country. And when we left that, Phil, they said, Craig, we've not seen anything like that. Go build that. And we left there that day and we greenlit the development. And we started developing in right around the end of first, beginning of second quarter of 18.
So, you've done a lot of startups.
Yeah.
And your data scientist, were you guys all full-time on this, or was this kind of a people... Here's the question that a lot of innovators worry about. They get this great idea and they think they immediately got to go out and go raise $10 million before they can do anything. Versus, you can do a lot being really scrappy.
Yeah, and trust me, we've been scrappy. I challenge anyone to do more with less. We've mostly done it on nights and weekends, and then there are a few of us, including me, that is full-time effort, no pay.
Yeah, so, I think we've all been on that in our startups,
Exactly. So I put the initial capital in to get us from prototype to beta, and then we raised a small amount, preferred equity, but essentially a friends and family to get us to from beta to, I would call us post beta now. We're version 2, and we're working on version 3 right now.
So today it's available. Can people take advantage of it today?
Absolutely, they can take advantage of it today. We led with iOS because 80% of our customers are on iOS devices. We have, again, our product roadmap and tech roadmap has us doing web and Android to follow as quickly as we can. But thus far, it's iOS. It's available for download, and we've got great adoption. We've got athletes in every state of the country on the app, plus Canada.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a lot of athletes from Canada want to come play ball here. We even got folks in Europe. It's not even optimized for Europe because we preload our database with the high schools, and so we don't have any of the schools in Europe, but they're actually users in Europe because we met a coach in Germany, in fact, and he played at Liberty University. And he's running combines over there and kids that want to come to the United States to play American football. So he's excited about it. I also learned at that conference that they've been playing American football in Mexico for 100 years, for a century. And
really?
Yeah.
I never think about it.
Yeah.
You think of those soccer being the...
But you wonder about, you see the NFL going to Mexico City to play those games. They've been playing American football down there for a century. So
well, it's kind of like NBA, doing China.
Absolutely.
For basketball being,
the
second largest country as far as fan base for the NBA.
Yeah, so we've been incredibly scrappy, but we've had great adoption, and we've had about 30% month-over-month growth. So we're excited about the future, and we have the ability to scale not only in football, but across sports.
So what's the next sport after football?
After football, we reach critical mass in football. It'll likely be basketball. You've got about the same amount of participants split between girls and boys. But when you look at the United States high school sports market, half of the kids participate in 4 sports: football, basketball, soccer, track and field. So that'll certainly, those will be, what we'll lead with.
I'm disappointed. Fencing is not, albeit my son now is 32. Yeah. So it's not like he's looking to go, albeit he got recruited in Division II, but
you're actually the first fencing parent, that I've talked to, but I've absolutely had, we get a lot of demand.
One of the top fencing schools in the country is right there in Northern Virginia, by the way.
Okay. We get a lot of demand from baseball parents, lacrosse. I've had swim parents come and say, when are you going to have it ready?
So what does it take to bring on a new sport?
Time. I mean,
But I mean, you really have to do a lot of tailoring?
Yeah, because we acquire massive amounts of data. It's a big data problem, right? When I talk to folks about what we do, and particularly folks that understand, that are embedded in the sport, when you talk about capturing data, so we there a lot of what we do is we measure the high school athlete against the athletes that have gone on to play college football. So 92,000 roster spots among the roughly 900 college football programs. And we've collected data over the last 5 years, and that'll be ongoing. So it's a lot of data, and it's not just on the athletes. It's the football program data, wins and losses, right? And stats, and so there's a big data collection. So we have to do that for every sport,
right?
And that's why we didn't come out of the gate. We didn't try. A lot of companies, and I've had startups in the past that have been sports tech companies. You try to take on all those sports at one time. You often it fit. Well, you can't go deep. Exactly,
you do the thin layer. You peanut butter across all the sports. And you never get enough depth to actually create the value add portion.
Exactly. And meaningful, meaningful data. So what we want to do is, again, we want to be the foremost data analytics and research company in this space.
So I think it reinforces the importance of focus.
Yes.
Right? Where a lot of entrepreneurs, you're trying to throw anything against the wall to see what sticks.
Exactly.
Versus, pick your focus, stay on your focus, go deep.
Yeah.
Validate the value proponent before you start going for breadth.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah.
So what's the plan now? Are you raising money, or are you looking for funds?
We are. So we've got, again, a preferred round open. For us specifically, I mean, we've got a round open now for, we're looking to raise about $1 million. And we can take that in smaller bites. It'd be great, Phil, if you want to write us one big check. But we'll take.
So I'm gonna get pitched live on the radio here. Pitch to invest.
But again, having done this, before, and as I mentioned earlier, I've got the battle scars to show it. I'm a 5-time offender of startups. This one, Phil, many are, but this one more than the others is all execution. We bring a lot of lessons learned to this one, and like you said, we learn stuff every time out, and we're still learning. But we have the opportunity here to do something really special in scale.
Yeah, well, I point out, people, I always hear the entrepreneurs like, "Oh man, I've done, 4 or 5 startups, and I haven't hit it big." I have to remind people, Intelligent, which was my big cash out, was startup 13 for me.
Wow.
Right? So, if you're going to be the entrepreneur, you want to be that innovator, it's endurance. It is grit to keep in the game, swinging away, trying to make that work. So when we come back, I'm going to ask Craig to take a look back across all of his companies and give us that advice he wish he had back when he started. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this quick break. Welcome back. Hey, Craig, we were talking at the break around, what is this? This is number 4 or 5?
Yeah.
Number 5?
Yeah.
And every time you do a startup, you always learn something.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is you'll always learn something new in every startup.
Yeah.
I think you kind of got wired or whatever.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in hearing is if you, both on this startup and on your previous startups, if you had that opportunity to kind of, have that time machine and go back to the beginning, but have all the learnings you've had, what's that piece of advice you wish you had gotten at the very, very beginning? It could be 1, 2, 3 pieces of advice, whatever you want to share, but what would be those pieces of advice that you wish you knew that the listeners could benefit from?
Yeah, I think, Phil, when I think about that, if I were to put that succinctly, I think it's making sure that your interests are aligned with the folks that you're working with, right? And we all come at it a little differently with different things that, motivate us and what we're trying to accomplish. But there's a great quote, and I won't try to, because I don't want to screw up his name, but the founder of AngelList, he has this great quote. And I want to think Naval is, I believe, his first name, if you pronounce it that. Yeah, I want to, I can pronounce it correctly. But he said, startups, we were talking about fundraising in the last segment, but startups don't die because they run out of money. They die because the founders run out of energy. And one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that you've got to have buy-in from everybody, and everybody's got to bring that same level of energy, right? I mean, there's some tactical things, right? But for me, it comes down to, again, what are you willing to sacrifice, to work on this thing, this dream that we have, this collective dream. And if we're all bought into the same mission, it can work. Where I've seen it from my own startups and other startups where it starts to fail is when those interests are not aligned and people go off and start doing other things that don't contribute to the mission.
Yeah, that actually is an interesting perspective, right? Because you got to make sure that this is something you're going to do for the long term.
Right.
It's not the flash in the pan because it kind of, tickled a little itch or something,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're 1 year into it and you go, man, this thing's not got legs for me.
Yeah, I didn't know it was going to be this hard, or I've got this other thing that I need to do, or again, that's where I've seen it run into trouble, and that's. And so, there's some tactical things and around, technology and, funding and those kinds of things. But it usually comes down to that core team. And if their interests aren't aligned, if they aren't on the same page.
How do you do that, though?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you, if it's people you've been close with and, you've done other engagements with them and, you involved in their company or they were involved in one of your, it's a little bit easier. But when you're going into a new area and you're collecting up now and you're recruiting people to be interested in your project to kind of throw their hat in the ring, how do you, because, some people will come in and they'll fake it until they make it kind of a thing. How do you validate that your interests are aligned?
Yeah, I think that comes down to one of the things that I hold dear in terms of, the characteristics and the traits that I bring to this and some of the value add that I bring, and that's trying to be a great leader, right? So I think it comes down to leadership oftentimes, and one of the, again, and this is not, new information, and you certainly know this, one of the most underutilized skills of leaders is listening. And you've got to listen to people. And when you ask, the right questions, listen to what that answer is. Because they're usually, there's that other adage, when people tell you who they are, believe them. If you're asking the right questions and you're listening, you'll hear who they are. and what they're really about. And so for me, this, assembling the team that we've been able to assemble here has been, the most important step. The technology is great, the AI, the ML, the data analytics, the predictive, outcomes that we can provide. But again, you've got to have the right people with the right buy. And that doesn't mean that we haven't had any, there have been a few bumps in the road, right? But what we do is we confront those challenges.
Don't let it go.
Don't let it go.
That's the other lesson is you think, okay, well, they're already in. If I have to replace them, that's going to take me a lot of time. I don't want to waste that time.
Yeah.
I'll just ignore it.
Yeah.
And what I remind CEOs of is you get the organization you deserve by the worst actions you allow happen. So
you go.
As a CEO, you deserve what you get by what you allow others to do.
Yeah.
So if you get people who are destructive in your organization, you as the leader, you're responsible to get them out of that organization. Absolutely. Because there's no one else to blame.
That's right.
But you as the leader.
That's right. And so it comes down to trust, right? And so what we've done is we've taken on, some core values. We call them the ABCs, right? Always be attentive. That means to our customers first, us as team members and stakeholders in the process. Be relentless in what we do. We want to be the very best at what we do. And C, contagious enthusiasm. Bring that energy and that excitement. And again,
that is great. Hey, Craig, if listeners want to keep track of where you're at and what's going on and all that, where's the best place they can find information about you?
Yeah, My Route XYZ, and that's MYROUTE .xyz. We chose that one. It's a new, that's
a new top level domain.
Yeah, top level, millennial domain. There's a nice connection there with XYZ to running a football route. And then .com wasn't available at the time, but
that's always the problem. Though. You can't find the can't find the .com.
Little
so
inside baseball. MyRoute.xyz.
Okay, let's check that out. Yeah. We'll have all the links in the show notes. We'll also link out to Craig's LinkedIn profile and all that, so you can kind of keep track of what.
And the app's available at College Football Recruit in the App Store.
And we'll have a link for that also for the iTunes Store. So hop on over to Killer Innovations, and we'll have all the links so you can find out about it. And if you've got a sport you want to try to convince Craig that yours should be the next sport, I'll leave it to you, the fans, to pitch Craig on being the next sport.
There
Craig,
you go.
Thanks for taking the time here at CES.
Thanks for having me.
Scheduled.
Thanks
a lot. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.